Stepsister got pregnant, but I didn't show any excitement because my brother passed away the previous day. Now she tells me I'm not invited to any of the future events that involve her baby. So I, 25 female, lost my brother Alex, 18 male this week. And to top it all off, a bunch of stuff happened, and everything is a mess at home. I need some honest opinions on this, because my entire family seems to think I'm the villain here. Firstly, some backstory. My mom and dad were the picture-perfect high school sweethearts who ended up together. But when I was 12 and Alex was only 5 years old, they ended up getting divorced. It wasn't unique or anything. He cheated and she was heartbroken, the usual. And it wasn't a pretty divorce either, because we pretty much never saw dad again after that. Fast forward 5 years, and mom meets David. He's kind, funny, successful, basically everything dad wasn't. The two of them hit it off right away and got married after a year of dating, and bam, suddenly have a new stepsister, Sarah, David's daughter from his first marriage. Sarah was 2 years older than me, and she and I never exactly saw eye to eye. She was always intense, competitive, and dramatic, the kind of person who thrives on attention. I tended to be more of the chill, introverted, and content to blend into the background type. We coexisted, but wouldn't call us friends. We had different interests and different friend groups and were more like roommates than sisters. But Alex and Sarah hit it off. They were both funny, sarcastic, and always up for an adventure. As for me, Alex was my sunshine. He and I had an unspoken connection, and we always knew what the other person was thinking. He was the person in the whole family who truly understood me. He was the glue that held us together, and eventually, Sarah and I managed to adjust to the new, awkward blended family life with minimal friction. Earlier this week, my world shattered. Alex, 18 years old, so young, full of life and dreams, was suddenly gone. A random accident caused by some drunk driver. One day he was laughing with me. The next day he was fighting for his life. And then it was over. It still doesn't feel real to me, and I'm still drowning in the grief, barely able to function normally. So the day after Alex's funeral, everyone gathered at Mom and David's house. Grief hung heavy, but there was also forced small talk. Then Sarah all of a sudden stood up dramatically and announced that there was something she had to tell us. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but there was a strange sort of excitement beneath the sadness. She blurted out, "I'm pregnant." David beamed and Mom teared up. Everyone congratulated her and her husband Mark. Everyone except me. I just couldn't react. All I could think was, Alex is gone. My heart felt like a lead weight, and my brain just short-circuited for a minute. Pregnant? Now? Maybe it was the grief, but something about this whole announcement felt off to me. Did she miss the part where our world had just imploded? I somehow managed to choke out a congratulations that sounded flat and emotionless, because what else do you say? But inside, I was numb, and maybe even a little angry. How could she be making it about herself at a time like this? Apparently, my less than enthusiastic response was not what Sarah had expected. Her face crumbled, and she instantly accused me of being jealous and not being happy for her. I tried to explain myself, to tell her how I was barely holding it together, but she wouldn't listen. She stormed off, leaving me feeling even more isolated and misunderstood. Fast forward to today, my mom called me in the morning, her voice tight. She told me that I could have been a bit more enthusiastic since Sarah is sensitive about these things. My answer to that was, "Sensitive? Mom, Alex is dead." Mom sounded like she was going to cry then, which made me feel bad for a second, but then she mumbled something about how life doesn't stop and this baby is a new beginning, which only made me angrier. A new beginning for who? Not for me, not for Alex. But yeah, apparently Sarah had painted me as the cold, heartless sister who had ruined her joyful announcement to all of our friends and family. And now, I'm being ostracized. My calls are going unanswered, and my texts are ignored. Mom even hinted that I might not be welcome at Sarah's baby shower, or any future events involving the baby for that matter, because Sarah doesn't want my negativity around the baby. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Did I owe Sarah a ticker tape parade the day after my brother's funeral? Or am I justified in feeling hurt by her insensitivity and my family's judgment. P.S. There's more to this story, but it's a lot to unpack. If this resonates with you guys, I might add it in the comments. But please be kind, because this is a very difficult time, and I don't need the internet piling on. Thanks for the responses, everyone. I'm reading through them all and appreciate all the different perspectives. It's been overwhelming, but reading your comments has helped me process this whole mess a little better. To answer some common questions, yes, I grieve with my family, but Sarah stayed mostly in her room, or with her husband, Mark, during the funeral. I never said anything negative about her pregnancy, just that I wasn't in the right headspace to celebrate. Yes, I know grief manifests differently. I wasn't trying to be cold, just numb. I'm not jealous of the baby, I'm just grieving my brother. I do want a relationship with the baby, but forcing it now feels wrong. Yeah, things are still tense. Mom's trying to play peacemaker, but Sarah's still frosty and David's caught in the middle, looking increasingly uncomfortable. I miss Alex like crazy, and the whole situation just makes it worse. I do love my family, even though things are strained quite right now. Now, remember how I said Sarah's pregnancy announcement felt a bit off? Well, there's a reason for that. Here's the thing. Sarah has always been, well, let's say dramatic. She likes to embellish, exaggerate, and basically live life like a reality TV show where she's the star. So when she dropped the "I'm pregnant" bomb, I couldn't help but feel a niggling suspicion. The timing just seemed too convenient, too calculated, like a scene ripped straight from a soap opera. Last Thursday, after that whole phone call with my mom, I was still drowning in grief, barely able to get out of bed. But something about Sarah's pregnancy, her forced excitement, it gnawed me. It just didn't sit right. So I did something I probably shouldn't have. I snooped. Not through her phone or her things, that's creepy, but her social media. There, buried within a bunch of her highlights in a private story, was a picture. A positive pregnancy test, but the date stamp, it was 2 weeks old. 2 weeks before Alex even passed away. If she had already known she was pregnant 2 weeks before Alex's death, why did she have to announce it the day after his funeral? Was it a joyful announcement, or was it a calculated move? An attempt to shift the spotlight away from Alex's death and onto her. Anger boiled up inside me. How could she be so callous when our brother had literally just died? So armed with all this newfound knowledge, I decided to confront Sarah. It wasn't pretty. I threw her insensitivity, her self-absorption, right back in her face. I told her how much her announcement hurt, how it felt like a slap in the face to Alex's memory. She didn't back down though. Instead, she went on the offensive, accusing me of being jealous, of trying to ruin her happy news. She even twisted it, saying I was the one being insensitive by making her pregnancy all about Alex dying when it was clearly two different things. That's when I dropped the truth bomb. In a fit of rage, I blurted out what I saw on her social media. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the tears started. Not crocodile tears, but genuine grief. As it turned out, the 2-week-old pregnancy test wasn't even the first one. It was the third. Sarah had been trying for months, each attempt ending in disappointment. The positive test, even though early, had been a beacon of hope. And then, Alex had died. The grief, the fear of losing another child, it all came crashing down with his sudden death. In her desperation, she clung to that hope, even if it meant manipulating the situation and hogging the spotlight. It's been a whirlwind since that day. My confession exposed Sarah's vulnerability, but it also strained the relationship between us. Mom and David are trying to navigate this whole emotional mess, caught between their daughters. I'm still dealing with my own grief, now tinged with anger, confusion, and if I'm being honest, some guilt. Had I reacted harshly, not knowing the full story behind Sarah's pregnancy issues, I'm feeling horrible about the whole thing. As for the baby shower, it's been postponed indefinitely. Sarah is apparently seeking therapy to deal with her pregnancy anxieties and the fallout of her actions. I think it's a good start. I can only hope that things take a better turn for all of us soon. It's been 3 days since my last update, and so many things have happened. You guys remember the 2-week-old pregnancy test thing? The one that sparked the whole mess? I found out that there was more to it than just the date being suspicious. There was something else, something hidden in plain sight, that hinted there's more to the story. Once again, the answers were on her social media, specifically a comment on the recent picture that was posted on the exact same day as that private story with a positive pregnancy test, a winking smiley face, and a bird, from our user named mysterious_007. Intrigued, and admittedly a little suspicious, I dug a little deeper. This mysterious_007 wasn't just some random follower. Their comments appeared on almost all of Sarah's recent posts in the last 6 months. They were often flirty, and she would reply with playful emojis. My gut twisted. Could Sarah be having an affair? And if so, was this somehow connected to the pregnancy announcement? Fueled by a mix of complicated feelings and a protective instinct for my sister, I decided to investigate it further. I know, not my brightest moment. But hey, sometimes curiosity, and maybe a touch of sibling rivalry, wins over common sense. As it turns out, mysterious_007 wasn't so mysterious after all, and with some clever social media sleuthing, I managed to uncover his real identity. The profile picture for mysterious_007 was a hand holding a steering wheel, and nestled in the corner of one of Sarah's recent story highlights, barely visible, was a detail I had initially missed. The same hand resting on a table across from her. The hand didn't belong to Mark, her husband, because Mark did not have a tattoo of a wolf howling at the moon on his hand. But I know who did. I felt a cold dread, because it belonged to Liam. He was this notorious guy from our high school, the one everyone used to whisper about, the one Sarah had always denied being friends with. He had gone completely off the radar after graduating, until now that is. Suddenly the pieces clicked into place in my head. Sarah's sudden pregnancy, her erratic behavior, her desperate need for attention. It all made some twisted sense. The announcement wasn't just about stealing the spotlight. I was suddenly sure it was an attempt to cover something up. I knew Sarah wouldn't be keen to talk to me again after our last conversation, but I had to figure out what exactly was going on here. So I decided to contact Liam directly, which, again I know, sounds like a bad idea, but I was desperate for some answers. I sent him a message on Instagram, and for whatever reason, he seemed all too keen to talk to me. He agreed to meet up with me the very next day, which is where I am right now, waiting for him to arrive and spill the beans on what's been going on with him and Sarah. Wish me luck, because I'm sure whatever I hear, it's not going to be happy news. I did it. I talked to Liam, and the story turned out to be crazier than I'd have expected. It turns out that Liam and Sarah had been secretly hooking up for months. The pregnancy test, it was his baby, not Mark's. And the timing, well, let's just say it coincided perfectly with a heated argument Sarah had with Mark, one where she stormed out, accusing him of not wanting children. The revelation hit me like a punch. My sister, the one who always judged everyone else, was living a double life, pregnant with a guy she barely knew, all the while manipulating the situation to her advantage. The timing of it, especially after Alex, was almost too much for me to take. But here's the kicker, the twist that truly blew my mind. Sarah wasn't actually pregnant. Not anymore, at least, according to Liam. Remember how she retreated for therapy after the confrontation with me? He said that the therapy wasn't just for her anxieties, it was for a miscarriage. She lost the baby, the one she used as a pawn, just days after the announcement. This news was like a sucker punch, relief mixed with pity, anger with sadness. I didn't know what to feel, or how to react. Sarah was grieving, yes, but her actions, her lies, all of it still stung. To top it all off, there is still one more piece to the puzzle, the elephant in the room, Mark. Apparently he knows about Liam and Sarah's affair and about the fake pregnancy. Knowing all this, our family dynamic feels even more fractured. Mom and David, oblivious and struggling to process everything, are caught between supporting their daughters and dealing with their own pain over Alex's death. Sarah is basically a ghost, withdrawn and silent. And then there's me, stuck in this emotional purgatory, trying to navigate the wreckage of our relationships and the grief of losing my brother. So what now? I'm honestly not sure what to do. Do I forgive Sarah? Do I confront her again? Or do I just walk away? protecting myself from the potential fallout. And what about Mark? Do I talk to him? Things are a total mess where they stand right now. Alright guys, it's been about a week since I found out about the whole Sarah and Liam thing, and even more stuff has happened. Buckle up, because this throws the whole family dynamic into a blender and hits puree. Remember how I mentioned Liam saying that Mark was okay with the fake pregnancy charade? That really nickled at me. But yeah, it turns out that it wasn't just him being supportive. He had his own reasons for playing along, which when I found out, made my jaw drop. On Sunday, I was over at my parents' for our weekly dinner, and Mark turned up by himself. Apparently Sarah had a therapy session that evening, so Mom and David had invited him. I noticed he looked down throughout. I mean, we all did, after Alex, but knowing what I knew, I wondered if it was something else. So when Mark offered to give me a ride home after dinner, I agreed. During the ride, I attentively broached the subject and told him that I knew Sarah wasn't really pregnant anymore and that I had talked to Liam. That was all it took. It seemed like Mark was waiting for someone to talk to him because he ended up pouring his heart out. He revealed the truth that completely changed the image that I had of him. Mark, it turned out, was sterile. Not just low sperm count, but completely unable to father children. A childhood illness, he told me, had left him with a devastating condition. He also said he had known for years, kept the secret buried deep, fearing rejection and judgment, not even telling Sarah. He admitted it was a mistake to conceal something like this from your partner, but I could also tell that he'd been desperate not to face rejection. Then came Sarah's pregnancy. Desperate for a family, Mark felt a glimmer of hope. Even if it was built on a lie, he chose to believe and to play along because the alternative, losing Sarah and the dream of being a father, was too painful to bear. The whole conversation was raw and heartbreaking. I saw the pain etched on his face, the fear of losing everything he held dear. And suddenly, his acceptance of the fake pregnancy didn't seem to be about being naive. It was more about clinging to a fragile hope. It changed everything. My conflicting feelings about Mark softened, replaced by an understanding. He was another victim in this twisted web of lies, even if he had added in his own share. But there is more to the story, because remember how Mark knew about Liam? He knew about the affair, the secret hookups, the fact that the baby wasn't his. Yet, he kept quiet. I asked him why. He confessed that he had suspected the affair for months. He saw the stolen glances, the late-night calls, and the way Sarah pulled away from him. But he was too afraid to confront her, too scared of losing her altogether. So he played along, hoping that she would eventually confess and hoping that the pregnancy would bring them closer together again. Honestly, I feel like I'm stuck in the middle now, torn between anger, pity, and this newfound understanding of the complex motivations that drove everyone's actions. But the same questions still remain. Do I expose Sarah's affair and risk further fracturing our already fragile family? Do I forgive and try to rebuild trust, knowing the foundation is shaky? Or do I walk away, seeking peace and healing on our own terms? In a weird twist of fate, Sarah actually decided to confront me before I could confront her. Apparently, after that drive home where he confessed things to me, Mark had decided more confessions were in order, so he ended up telling Sarah all of it and the pregnancy/miscarriage. Sarah immediately assumed that I had been the one to tell Mark about her sordid affair, even though he had told her that he had known long before I did. So she decided to turn up at my house, yelling and screaming all sorts of things about me ruining her life. I made sure to set her straight that up till Alex died, I had no idea any of this was going on, and pointed out that it wouldn't benefit me in any way to expose her, which is why I hadn't. All I had wanted was to know what was going on. Sarah finally realized that I wasn't lying. She broke down and revealed that Mark, heartbroken and disillusioned, had decided to finally end things with her. The happy family facade he desperately clung to had shattered, especially since the baby was gone too, and he decided he couldn't continue living a lie. On top of this, her affair with Liam was in shambles too. Apparently he had his own secrets that added another layer of complexity to this already messy situation. Remember how Liam knew all about the fake pregnancy situation and he had been part of the charade, willingly playing the role of the secret lover and the father-to-be? I never stopped to wonder why he was playing along with all of it, but it turns out that it was because he had his own agenda, one that involved manipulation and some twisted revenge plan. It all came out during a heated phone call between Sarah and Liam, where he revealed that he had never cared about her, that the affair was just a game, a way to get back at someone close to Sarah. The revelation was a huge blow to her, and me too, when I heard it. Who was this someone Liam was targeting, and what did they have to do with Sarah? She had no idea, and neither did I, and she left my house after that confrontation with more questions than answers for the both of us. But yeah, ever since that day, things have been strange to say the least. Mark has moved out of his and Sarah's house. The guilt, the grief, the shame, it all came crashing down, leaving Sarah a shell of her former self. Mom and David, unaware of any of the specifics, tried their best to support her. They had her move back in with them, since she was still supposedly pregnant, to them anyway, and needed taken care of. I'm not sure if this was a good thing, or if it was like rubbing salt in the wound, but I figured Sarah probably felt abandoned by the men in her life and could use the care and affection from our parents. As for me, I became the unwilling mediator, the only other person who knew the full truth of it all. I tried getting Mom and David to give Sarah some space whenever she needed it and encouraged the therapy sessions. And I tried to spend some time with Sarah herself, though most of it ended with her in tears. It was exhausting and draining, especially because I was still not over my own grief about Alex, but I couldn't just sit back and watch my family implode. I can only hope things get better. However, a part of me knows that Sarah would never have closure till we knew who the person Liam had meant was. So I guess it's still not over, and another confrontation might be in order soon. Alright everyone, we finally found out the full story of why Liam had manipulated Sarah in his twisted game of revenge. It was prettier than anyone could have expected, but more than that, it was closer to home than I ever expected. Turns out, the someone wasn't Sarah's husband, nor our parents. It was, shockingly, me. So last Friday, Sarah and I talked and decided we had to confront Liam about what he had confessed. We weren't sure if he'd respond to her since they weren't talking, so I reached out to him again and asked me to talk more about his and Sarah's affair. Again, he agreed for whatever reason. Sarah came with me, and once she saw him, she went completely ballistic. The truth came out during that explosive argument, shattering the last remnants of peace in our already fractured family. Liam finally blurted out that it was me he was trying to get back at. Sarah, her face pale, eyes filled with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief, turned to me and went, "It was you? You're the one Liam hated?" I stared blankly at the both of them, not understanding any of it. Me? It didn't even make sense. But it did. As Liam spoke, the pieces clicked into place and a memory of high school surfaced. Sarah and Liam's senior year, yearbook nominations. I was on the yearbook committee, tasked with compiling a list of potential candidates for various awards. One of the categories was most likely to end up in jail. A ridiculous category in hindsight, I know, but back then it seemed like the funniest thing. And who did I nominate? In a moment of thoughtless teenage amusement, Liam, the bad boy, the troublemaker, the one everyone secretly, or not so secretly, gossiped about because his own dad was in jail. He was the easy and obvious choice. Looking back, I realized the cruelty of it. A stupid teenage prank, fueled by a desire to fit in, to be a part of the popular crowd. But for Liam, it was a defining moment, a public humiliation that festered in his heart, morphing into resentment and a desire for payback. The realization hit me like a physical blow, that I wasn't directly responsible for the manipulation, the lies, and the pain inflicted on Sarah and my family. The guilt was suffocating, the regret, a bitter pill to swallow. Liam, satisfied at having dropped this bomb on us, left. I knew then that we won't be hearing from him again. Sarah turned to me, voice laced with hurt, and went, "How could you? How could you do that to him, knowing what he was like?" And I couldn't answer. Shame choked me, because what excuse could I possibly offer? There was none. My teenage stupidity had caused a domino effect of devastating consequences. The family dynamic is now beyond ruined. Mom and David finally know the full story. They are struggling to process everything. They keep looking at me with a mixture of disappointment and hurt. Sarah, devastated by the revelation, has withdrawn even further, the emotional walls around her thicker than ever. And me, I'm drowning in self-loathing, unsure if I can ever forgive myself for the pain I unknowingly caused. The road ahead is uncertain. I don't know if we can rebuild the trust shattered by lies and manipulation. Or if we can find a way to heal and move forward, knowing how everyone's actions had such a devastating impact. As of now, I really have no answers. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last update, and with good reason. This whole ordeal has been a whirlwind of emotions, a test of our family's strength and resilience. This final update might not be the picture-perfect ending, but it's where we are, for now. The truth is that the path to forgiveness and healing, like everything else in life, isn't simple. It's a long, arduous journey, paved with introspection, tough conversations, and a whole lot of raw emotion. Forgiving myself for my teenage stupidity has been the hardest part. Following Sarah's example, I decided to sign myself up for therapy too. It helped, pushing me to work through my grief at losing Alex and acknowledge the hurt I caused and work towards making amends. I also came to realize that what happened wasn't all me. Yes, Liam had held a grudge against me, and that has motivated his actions, but Sarah had also willingly chosen to have an affair with him, and Mark had chosen to hide the truth of his condition from his wife, leaving the door open for her to seek out somebody else. Those other things were not on me. It hasn't been easy, but slowly, I've started to feel more like myself, accept responsibility and forgive myself. Not to erase what happened, but to move forward. Forgiving Sarah and Liam, however, was a different story. Their actions, especially Liam's manipulation and Sarah's lies about all of it, were difficult to reconcile with. But if therapy has taught me one thing, it's that holding on to anger wouldn't mend anything. It would only keep us trapped in the cycle of hurt. So I started by forgiving them, not for their actions, but for the pain they were clearly carrying themselves. Sarah, burdened by guilt and grief, was a shadow of her former self. Liam was obviously lost in his own web of resentment that he saw fit to take out on others, but it was a product of a difficult childhood. Understanding their motivations didn't condone their choices, but it paved the way for my own healing. As for the family dynamic, it still remains strained, but there are glimmers of hope. Mom and David, tired of all the drama, asked Sarah to move back to her own house after finding out the truth about all the lies. They started focusing on their own self-care, and after 2 months of therapy, Sarah finally started opening up, apologizing for her part in the mess. We may not be the picture-perfect family, but we're slowly learning to communicate, to forgive, and to move forward, one awkward conversation at a time. As for Mark and Sarah, their relationship didn't survive. I guess the lies, both of theirs, the affair, and the fake pregnancy proved too much. They ended up filing for divorce. Sarah, still dealing with the emotional fallout, is taking things slow, focusing on getting back to a healthy place. Honestly, the scars of this whole ordeal will remain, a stark reminder of the consequences of our actions, but we're choosing to learn from them, to build trust, and to move forward. Whether we'll become a close-knit family again, only time will tell. But for now, we're taking it one day at a time, finding solace in small victories, and holding on to the hope of healing. I think it's the best we can do. It's what Alex would want us to do. This is the end of it, Reddit. It might not be the ending you expected, but it's our reality. A messy, imperfect, and ultimately hopeful one. It's been a wild ride, with more twists and turns than a roller coaster, and I'm thankful to everyone who's been there for your support and guidance through this difficult time. And that was a wrap up for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me, and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you in the next one.